everybody. Hi, welcome to Surfing Your Edge Live. I am here today with my guest, Sarah Michael. Thank you so much for being with me today, Sarah.
You are so welcome. I'm excited to be here. Yay.
I'm excited too. It's been a difficult week and wasn't quite sure if I should have a show. And then I had a really great conversation with you. And I'm really glad that we're doing this. So I want to tell you a little bit about who Sarah is. She helps visionary entrepreneurs nail down their words to articulate hard-to-describe services and have conversations everywhere that lead to high-ticket clients while being their brilliant, quirky selves. So if she knows how to have complicated sales conversations and let you still be your brilliant, quirky self, I imagine she can help you have other kinds of difficult conversations. Sarah combines her practical business expertise, years of marketing and sales experience, and gifts for messaging she created the Feminine Sales Power System that helps clients skyrocket their confidence and income with high-ticket programs that sell like hotcakes. So I know everyone in the business world is looking for someone like Sarah to help them out, and I'm really glad that she's here. As I mentioned early, this has been a really intense and powerful week for everyone. And on top of the coronavirus, we've had so much happening with the Black Lives Matter movement, and where we as white women are learning and listening, and we know it's on us to create the kind of world we want to see, and we're figuring out how to step into that in a bigger way. So thank you for being with me today, Sarah. She's here today to talk about survival instincts. I walked into a meeting with her last week, and I told her about an encounter I'd had, and she said, your inner cave woman did not like that one bit. And my little ears perked up, and we decided that talking about survival instincts right now is a really good thing. So
helpful.
Yeah, very. I wanted to start with one quote that I found from Sarah, and then I am going to ask her to do more talking because I'm just rambling here. She says on her website, in one of her blog posts, our feminine survival instinct to stay connected to other people means we are constantly looking outwards and assessing what others are doing or saying and anticipating what other people want from us. So I think that's a great place for Sarah to start talking to us about what the feminine survival instinct looks like.
Absolutely it is, because that gets at the crux of that drive to stay connected and the behaviors that creates for us daily, weekly, monthly. And we call it an external focus because we are incredibly externally motivated. Have you seen the movie Inside Out, the cartoon Pixar?
Yes.
So it's brilliant,
good.
And it gets so much of the brain science right, and inadvertently or vertently, it's not really a thing, but I say that sometimes. They got this dead on right. Which is when the first day of school, they've just gotten to San Francisco, Riley's first day of school, and Joy and Disgust are discussing what they're going to wear. And Disgust says, we want to blend in and stick out. And that is exactly the fine line that the feminine survival instinct is walking. Because, it's this just enoughness, because we don't want to be so in the back of the tribe. So this is survival instincts, y'all. This is wired in our DNA, millennia old, and it's hardwired. And it doesn't mean that over many, 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 many more generations of us that we can't simmer some of this down. But when you look at the arc of, humanity on Earth as we know it, at least written history, but what we know about prehistoric times too, we have figured some good things out. Our physical safety, and I think the pandemic brings that even less, it nicks this confidence, but really it's only been like 150 years, if I'm being generous, since basic aspects of our physical survival have not been our dominant concern,
right?
At least in the developed world, right? Do we have enough to eat? Do we have shelter? And are there no like wild things coming to eat us? Right. Those three things. And then how they evolved was then we had sanitation problems. I mean, cholera was sanitation. 100%. That, it was a pandemic, but it didn't, it wasn't created by birds or bats or swine. It didn't jump species. It was because we were drinking dirty water. And if you figure, and anyway, I won't go down that random tangent, but it hasn't been that many generations of human evolution where we have been physically safe, is my point, really. Right. And I do think this pandemic where, despite medical science, despite, other, immunology, all the things we know and we can do and how fast technology can speed up production and research, even that couldn't nip this one in the bud, right? So it is bringing us, large, where, a large confrontation with, like, there are some things that even in our modern world we cannot control that do directly, potentially threaten our safety, right? So that looking outward and that balance is we want to be in the middle of the pack, because we don't want to be in the back of the pack, because that's far too anonymous, not nearly connected enough. We don't necessarily want to be too out front, thus that we create attention for ourselves and perhaps become the target of others. Right. Scrutiny or wrath or jealousy or whatnot. Right. And that's that edge of, I want to stick out, but I want to blend in. And that external motivation gets in the way. I mean, I was joking with you, it'll sneak up on me for sure when I'm scheduling stuff with somebody where I will be trying so hard to make that time work. I'm staring at my calendar, trying to make it work. And, I have a bit of a inner alarm clock that after about 30 to 45 seconds of trying to make it work is usually when I'm like, okay, you're trying too hard. It just doesn't work. And you need to ask for a different day or whatnot. It can get in the way, as we were talking about, in terms of marketing and sales. And that's what I focus a lot of my work on is how does that drive to stay connected have us marketing in ways that aren't very powerful or selling in ways that aren't very powerful. And then, here we're going to talk a bit today about how that external motivation might get in the way of living with COVID. And I do think that's the way to put it, because we have to learn, for the time being at least, to live with COVID.
Yeah. Yeah. And going back to what you said about our basic needs, for much of the U.S., most basic needs are met for a lot of people on a regular basis. And I think that COVID kind of shook that foundation a tiny bit. And people were like, well, am I going to have a job? Am I going to pay rent? Am I going to have a place to live? And, how am I going to get my groceries? And is it going to be safe to go get my groceries? Or is it safe to have my groceries delivered? And what happens if we run out of toilet paper? And all the craziness. I mean, you couldn't find flour or yeast or dried beans for the longest time. And it really pushed a lot of buttons that people haven't had pushed on that level.
Yeah, and it's asked us to sacrifice on a level we haven't been asked to in several generations too.
Right.
Most recent, when we were during World War II and we were conserving tin and crap, and silk, and nobody had pantyhose, and but I remember those stories from my grandma, especially. My mom was born in 44, but and it America was asked to sacrifice for the greater good, and I do think we had a bit of a hard time really wrapping our head around that sacrifice, just because it's been so long.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, and the Spanish flu in 1918 and 1919, we don't have much record of that. And I saw it illustrated, depicted, dramatized in Downton Abbey.
Yeah.
And they didn't really mention this part, but I have read some accounts now, like this, this little girl, and she's still alive. So she's giving this account now. This little girl saying, I remember we didn't go out much for like a year and a half.
Right.
And it was weird, and she's like 6. And now we're here, and this is very similar. So there's times when we collectively don't leave the house much, or at least go into big crowds.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you were just mentioning that women are so externally motivated that when we're cut off from our external society, what happens to us then?
Well, that's where you need to make sure you're getting enough connection.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is the thing. And the masculine actually has its own deficits because of this, like sports and watching sports.
Right.
Gives men refills men's testosterone. It literally regenerates when they watch sports or play sports. But watching is good enough. Watching is fine. And it occurred to me 3 weeks in, I was like, oh, we put all the men at home and they don't even have sports. We're gonna have some sideways, off balance, masculine people going on, right? And I think with women, it's making sure you're getting enough connection, especially if you're an extrovert and you don't have any habits around getting that on the phone or in other ways.
Right.
Right. If you're used to going to bars or going out with your girlfriends or going to whatever it is, and that's your social outlet, and you don't have any other connection points or possibilities, then that would be hard. And certainly, keeping an eye on that connection is what it's all about, because connection, if we can create connection, we create our own safety. Mm-hmm. So if the feminine equates disconnection with death, and it does after 12 years of studying this, it does. I've seen it enough with myself and other people reflecting back to me. Then connection makes us safe. Mm-hmm. So one of the more kind of annoying dichotomies with the masculine and feminine is what is safety to the masculine actually gives them extra oomph to go do business activities that are scary or frightening or whatever, because safety to the masculine is respect and trust. So it's I'm going to go do the thing because I get more to respect and trust, extra oomph. Whereas with the feminine, the pull is, oh no, that's a really bad idea. We don't want to do that. That's just, we don't know how that's going to end. All processing leads towards unfavorable outcomes. Don't do it. And so it's pulling us back. And that's where looking at how do we create our own safety. And to answer your question, to create, it's just, more specifically here, create your own connection. If you're not getting enough for whatever reason in terms of how your life changed, then finding ways online. I know the House Party app has exploded, and it's it's like video conferencing. It's like Zoom, but without the pretense and setup. Uh-huh. You can just hop on and you can see who's in rooms or in a house, and it's fun. And there's trivia. It's actually one of the things I like better. You can play trivia with someone or a group, and that's kind of fun. But that's boomed. I know, especially when we were on heavy quarantine. But, finding different ways of connecting. And, we were talking about this the other day, is in finding different ways to express ourselves. Because, we're not going to be able to hug like we used to. We're not going to be able to necessarily do handshakes like we used to for the time being. Or if Dr. Fauci has his way ever again, he would banish the handshake. And as an epidemiologist or whatever he is, I can understand from his perspective why it's a bad idea that we touch each other like that.
Right. One of the other things I wanted to talk to you about just briefly is that I know several women who have created little safe spaces for themselves online, and dating apps are not necessarily one of those safe places right now. I know several who decided that no, there are too many bored people out there just playing games. So they created other safe places for themselves. And because we're all on Zoom, they're able to join book clubs in a city across the country where,
Right.
But the problem, or the interesting thing that has come up this week, is that even those safe spaces that they've created where they can kind of disappear into, we're going to talk about a book for a whole 2 hours, right? This week, those conversations were all about what's going on in the social world. So even those places didn't allow us to come back to ourselves and find a place of relaxation.
They didn't provide relaxation. Yeah.
Well,
the world isn't a very relaxing place right now. I mean, it's not. And certainly watching a bunch of discord going down on a book club that you've, had heretofore been kind of chill, we don't like to witness disconnection any more than we like to be part of disconnection. Yeah. Although if we had our druthers, it's somebody else. I mean, it is survival instincts, y'all. And that is, back to kind of like where in the pack we want to be. There is this, and that's where the competition comes from women. And it's why, we want to support each other, but she's like stabbing somebody in the back, simultaneously, can come from, because you can see it, because there's this lip service to collaboration and yet behavior that's so competitive. And it is a survival instinct for women to compete with women, because we're competing for who owns the mantle of top female. Because we assume wrongly that if something were to happen, so we're in this tribe, it's both men and women, and something bad happens, and the men that are bigger and stronger, just physically speaking, built bigger and stronger, are saving people, that unless we're number one top female, we're not going to get saved.
Yeah.
And where I learned the masculine and feminine work in its essence, that company has been doing research into men and women now for over 25 years, and interviewing, and it's all just you tell us, how your experience is. But we ask some specific questions to find out specific things about topics. And we asked, were hell to break loose, who would you save? In the room. This is pre-COVID, right? And invariably the answer is, as many people as I can without endangering myself. Something along those lines. And so there's really no need to be worried about, we got to be in but it is survival instinct. It is a default. We will go there at times, even if it's a little baby thing that, I've gotten called out on the internet because I will acknowledge the shadow. I will acknowledge when my survival instinct is being a pill and not being generous and not being compassionate, and I will own it. And because it's better out than in, and and noticing it and being aware of it. So but I'm oh my God, I can't believe you said that. I'm like you're just not willing to be honest, or maybe you don't have that awareness, but we all got it. Right. And I'm just willing to be honest about it and say I had this ungenerous view, and I see that it was ungenerous and I didn't act on it, or you know what I mean? But we part of staying alive is judging.
Right. It's true.
I'm one of the least judgmental people in the world, as certified by a psychic. Just so you know, like something. I'll tell this story because that's random. Otherwise, she mentioned this story about how, because people are worried that, like, is she reading them or blah 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 blah. People shy away from her, and she's had some weird interactions, so she doesn't draw people close. And I've known her, and she drew me close now for 4 or 5 years, and so, like, I practically accosted her during the break, and I was like, "Why me? What? You did this. You made this friendship happen." And she thought for a second, and she was like, "I didn't think you were judging me." And I was like, "Oh, I wasn't. Totally didn't get it, but I wasn't judging, And she was totally right. So as felt by a psychic, I'm not judgmental generally, but I'm human, and we make judgments. Is that pan hot? Is that neighborhood dodgy?
Right.
Should I trust this guy?
Right.
Right? Like, does this feel right?
Yeah.
And so we can't get away from it. How we can learn and sort of grow with it, though, is notice where we're comparing ourselves to with other women. Either in a business sense, but normally it's more physical. It's like, she has better eyelashes, and it's kind of silly, or, not silly to diminish it, but it can seem trivial.
Right.
Her hair's better, but where are we comparing ourselves to women?
Right. Yeah. And I think that now that we're all online all the time, and people tend to put online what they want to represent themselves rather than what might actually be happening, I think it's an even more challenging time to figure out how you are in comparison to how everyone else is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the curation of social media. Even the authenticity is curated.
Yes.
But yeah.
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 So with COVID, that external motivation, I don't want to forget to get this piece we were talking about the other day, because I think it'll help gals, help women. When we go back to being with people and potentially hugging, and, and I think it already has started, where we have to decide for ourselves what our boundaries are, what our thresholds are. That external motivation will pull you to do what others are doing.
Right.
And it will cause you to want to hug, even though you decided you weren't going to hug.
Right.
It will cause you to sit at a table closer than you really would prefer, because that's what everyone else is doing.
Right.
And the more awareness we can bring to the pull of it, because it is a pull, y'all. Alison Armstrong is in the masculine, feminine, her work in the essence is about romance. And, but she did a video or a training last fall. And it was, I think it was part of the reason I ended up on it was her subject line was like, why men lie. And due to the fact that Alison understands the feminine survival instinct so well, better than me. She's been doing it longer, at least. Typically she doesn't want to like hit the pain points. Like, as a marketer, I'm like, you got to hit the pain points. But she doesn't. She stayed away from the pain points. And I was like, well, hello, Alison. Like, what is this? So I ended up on this thing. And at one point, she was asking women really to look inside at some of that, like, not pretty stuff that gets derived by, driven by survival instincts. And she's like, ladies, is this easy? Like, it takes it. It's one of the reasons we say it. You must, it's about being courageous,
right? And
looking at this stuff. And here's the segue. And you're not going to mind how I do this. And here's the segue, though, y'all, to what's going on with the Black Lives Matter and the race relations in this country. And that is, we are being asked to look at our shadow. We are being asked to look at the stuff in us that lies so deep as to nearly be imperceptible, but we can perceive it and we can become aware of it. And just like all these awarenesses we're talking about today, we can start to become aware as white people or Asian people or whatever people that we have judgment, that some of this stuff is ingrained, some of this stuff, well-meaning, liberal, anti-racial, anti-racist people for generations have been propagating. And it's about looking at, I call it like turning over the rocks of our like psyche and our subconscious and being like, whose is this?
Right.
Do I want it? Is this mine? Do I want it? And sometimes you look at what that is and it's not the best of us, and that's okay.
Right.
Well, in my mind, that's okay, especially when you're doing the work.
Yeah. They've shown
what we're being asked to do is look at that stuff and get honest, even when it doesn't paint a pretty picture of ourselves.
Right. And we have to cut ourselves a tiny bit of slack and realize that they're realizing that most of how you believe the world works is a picture you formed by about the age of 4. Mm-hmm. You figured it out before your brain was anywhere near close to being fully developed. You have a picture of when this happens, this happens. This happens when I do this. This happens when they do that. And so a lot of the assumptions that we have as human beings aren't even ours. And right. You said if we don't consciously look at them, we don't know they're there. And we can't say, is this helping? Is this an effective story? Is this an effective way for me to feel and think and react in the world?
Well, yeah. And that's all we're being asked. And it's us, we have to do the work, and then we have to that's the internal work. And then there's the external work of like changing stuff,
right?
And figuring out how we're going to, make this country work for everybody, right. Or at least work a whole lot better for a whole lot more of the people.
Right.
Because, go ahead.
I just wanted to make one more little plea that everyone now, I know there's a lot of pressure already on us to get back to what normal is and to get out into the world and start living our lives the way we had been. And I know that we've had a lot of time to rethink about how we want our families to look and how we want our home life to look, and how we want to, and now we're looking at how we want to be in terms of our relationships with everyone in the world, and whether we can be better allies. And so I just want to encourage you that before things get even more open and you are pushed to go even faster out into the world, that you take a minute and write down some of the things you've decided and your reasoning for why you're deciding it, because this time will fade. And what seems really important and really powerful to us now may not feel the same way in a couple of weeks or months.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would that's a great advice. And I would just add to that. And when you're out there in the world and the external motivation is pulling you to do what everyone else is doing, just declare yourself safe. It can be as easy as that. And that always helps.
I love that.
Declare yourself safe. You're connected. And stand by in a polite way what you decided your boundaries were.
Right.
And are. I mean, that's how we got into the discussion the other day. I had an event right before, like literally the day that national emergency was declared, and kind of at least most of the country got with what was going on, and that it was bad, and it was here, and it was on. And there was a big event here for about 140 people, and I had to go. If I hadn't had to, I probably wouldn't have. But I wasn't going to hug. So I spent like a good hour and a half, 2 hours, like declining hugs. And my cave woman hated it a lot. But 80% of the people who I said, oh, I'm just not hugging today, sorry, and I had all this stuff about different forms of expression and being goofy with it. 80% of them said, oh, none of us should be hugging, yeah, which leads me to believe that they knew what they wanted to do,
right?
Their boundary. But because everybody's hugging and we're a huggy bunch, as they say, that wasn't getting abided by.
Right.
Because their survival instinct was saying, no, do what everyone else is doing. Do what everyone else is doing.
Right.
You stay safe.
Right.
And it wasn't easy. And I remember standing next to a guy I know pretty well, and I'm like, my game room's really unhappy. Like, I just need, again, sort of naming it, I just needed to acknowledge, like, she was jumping out of her skin by the time, like, the networking portion of the morning had been done. And we were going to sit at our tables and kind of have the program happen. Unhappy lady.
Yeah.
But I was fine, and it was fine, and, you know, but it wasn't easy. And I was like, no, you know, none of us should be getting that close. Yeah.
So I like what you reminded us there, that, you know, holding your personal boundary. Well, I want to say two things about that. One is that it's going to be hard, and that it's going to, you know, all of this stuff, the holding your boundary, going out into the world and being who you need to be, that's going to cause you to surf your edge, right? You're going to be out there doing things that are uncomfortable, but that discomfort is required. It's not something you can skip over. It's unfortunately the way it's going to have to happen. But the other thing I wanted to say is that when you hold your boundary and you do it in a way that respects the people around you, but you say, look, this is what I need to do for myself, you're giving permission to all of those other people, especially the women who are looking for guidance, you know, who are looking for connection. You're giving them permission to hold their own boundaries.
Yeah, totally. Exactly. And well put. And it's not easy. And that's why we need support. And, you know, it's not easy.
Because
but it can be done.
Yeah.
It really can. And it doesn't happen overnight, but you know, you kind of work up to it, and you put more evidence in your brain that you can do these things and not die. You know, that's a very important, you know, piece of the pie. I mean, especially when I get clients who haven't had much experience yet. I'm like, nope, we just need to get you some evidence that people will pay.
Right.
Like, you know, and, you know, that's job one is put that evidence in. So, and then that, you know, the growth really can start happening when the evidence starts coming. It's crucial to the process.
Right. And that actually brings me to another point. I know you had a big live event planned, and you have now had to shift along with the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. And if we're going to keep our shining our light in the world, we have to find new ways to do that. And you have a new event coming up, and I'd love it if you would tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, that's the perfect segue, because a big part of what we're going to be doing at Feminine Sales Power is exercises to jumpstart and fast track your growth, getting you comfortable doing the things that are scary. Okay. There is so much, as I say, there's acres of space and access and power on the other side of getting comfortable doing what our survival instinct says is a really bad idea, like selling, asking for money, raising our rates.
Right, especially now.
Right? Especially now with COVID has only made it harder for the feminine to sell, y'all. Right. Because now it's like, now we have to add opportunistic and greedy to the mix of just the day-to-day fears of, you know, they'll think that's all I want from them, and I'll put pressure on them. And I don't mean to minimize the day-to-day ones, y'all, because those loom large, but now we just stack more on it, and lives are at stake now too. Fun! Like, I mean, it's tough. And there is a way to be powerful and connected, and a depth of conversation. I'm doing webinars next week too, and I was working on the script yesterday, and, you know, really going into, you know, part of why the sales process is 80% feminine, like feminine energies, feminine forms of power, and only 20% masculine forms of power, is so much of it's about connection and depth. And why it works so well for high ticket is when, if you can develop that connection fast and go that deep with somebody on the phone, you can close a multi-$1,000 sale in an hour. I don't suggest less until you're really, really, really good. And I'm not even that good yet. Like, I still give myself an hour. And here's the thing with time. Time gives you space. Time is feminine. If you have to slam through a sales consultation, that's super masculine. Anyway, I'll not start teaching too much. But that's the crux of it, is it's about space. It's about connection. It's about possibility. It's about exploration. And very feminine forms of power. And sales has gotten a bad rap because of the masculine forms of power that are most often used, like pushiness and pressure and manipulation and scarcity. Yeah. And so I have taken all the wonderful strategies out there in the industry, learned them, and then massaged them to optimize for connection, leverage the connection and the feminine, and still have the strategies work. And that's where it's masculine structures that support feminine flow. So we still need the masculine. It's a dance, it's a balance, it's a moment by moment choice of which is needed in the moment. And that's the dance we want to be playing. So the event, I'm super psyched. It's June 23rd to 25th. Starts on the evening of the 23rd and then the 24th and 25th. And the link is, I can say it, but I think Kristine's going to put it up. It's bit.ly/FSP, like Feminine Sales Power -virtual.
Yeah, it's in the chat now, in the comments now.
Cool. Yeah, so bit.ly/FSP -virtual. And would love to have you. It's going to be so cool. I'm super excited, which makes it super fun to be promoting all the time.
Well, the funny thing is I'm already signed up to join you there, so I'm super excited about that. But just having you describe it the way you did now, I felt expansiveness. I felt room to breathe. I felt like, oh, this is going to be, because like you said, it's not going to be, you're not teaching me how to do a time crunched, you got to hit all your points and do all of the things. You're going to teach me even more deeply how to have a powerful conversation with someone that, we're both working toward the same outcome, which is that the other person's problem gets resolved, whether we can help or we can't, Yep.
So, and are we a fit? And if and how I can help you. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So I'm excited to be there. I hope other people will join us.
Yes, please.
I usually end these, Sarah. I didn't prepare you for this.
That's right. That's okay. I'm really good on the fly. So what's up?
Yeah, I just usually I usually end these with, is there something that you wish I had asked you or something that you'd like to say to make the conversation feel more complete for you?
I will say this, that just a caveat that masculine, feminine, no one or the other is better from where I sit. Y'all, these are survival instincts. The things that men do that annoy women, and I'm being specific about using gendered language there and not the energies of masculine and feminine, are because our survival instincts are clashing with each other. So one of the best questions to ask yourself is like, what is the good reason, probably associated with survival instinct, that would cause this behavior I don't like? What is the good reason for this? And it's so easy to slide down that road, and the world kind of wants to slide down the road, but this work is decidedly honoring both the masculine and the feminine. And the thing is, we're a cocktail, and that's why it's a moment-by-moment choice. There's aspects of us that are masculine and aspects of us that are feminine, whether you're a man or a woman, or transgender or any, and that's where I see transgender, and I'm like, it makes perfect sense.
Right.
You know what I mean? We're energies. It gets, sometimes it looks like this. Sometimes the external expression of it needs to change too. You know what I mean? We're all a cocktail of these things. And the point is to really just understand yourself. And, but neither is better. It's about both in tandem and in concert.
That's lovely. Yes, I agree completely. So we've learned to respect what we need as individuals, to cut ourselves some slack, and to cut other people slack at the same time if we can, and say, great question, why would they be doing this?
Yeah, what's the good reason? What's the good reason? Yeah.
All right. So thank you very much, Sarah. I really have enjoyed talking with you today, and I'm going to thank everyone for watching. And if you have questions for Sarah, please leave them in the comments here, and I'll make sure she gets them. So you can still get answers even in the replay.
There you go. And thank you, Miss Kristine. This has been a delight. I appreciate it. Great conversation.
Thank you. I'm wishing everybody wonder. Have a great week. Bye-bye.